Google is the most visited site on the internet, but it has been censored in mainland China since 2010. This censorship didn't come automatically, but followed a difficult decade of efforts to establish itself in that country, punctuated by a sudden and dramatic end. In this video, we will answer the question, how did the biggest website in the world get censored in the biggest economy in the world? Google first launched a Chinese language version of its website in 2000, 1 year after the company was founded. The site was immediately targeted by Chinese censorship and was reportedly available only 10% of the time. When Chinese authorities improved their digital censorship apparatus in 2002, the site went completely dark. Google attempted to re-enter the Chinese market in 2006 when it launched Google.cn. At Google.cn, the company agreed to self-censor its search results according to the directions of the Chinese government, but claimed that this agreement did not violate its founding mantra, "Don't be evil," because the site would inform its users when its results were censored, and because Google would not host any services involving personal or confidential information, such as Gmail, in the mainland. Google.cn received an operating license from the Chinese government in 2007. That year, its CEO, Eric Schmidt, gave a very positive assessment of Google's future in China, presenting evidence that it was on pace to overtake all competition from domestic Chinese search engines. By 2009, Google had approximately 1/3 of the Chinese market share and was gaining on its biggest domestic rival, Baidu, which had 58%. Then, in mid-2009, the ball dropped. In a coordinated cyber attack nicknamed Operation Aurora by the cybersecurity company McAfee, Chinese hackers bypassed the security of Google and at least 34 other financial, defense, and technology companies, apparently in industries in which Chinese technology had been lagging. In addition to accessing Google's source code, the Chinese hackers accessed the Gmail accounts of Chinese human rights activists living in the US, Europe, and China, and the accounts of American think tanks then contributing to Washington's policies on China. The attacks continued for several months until December 2009. Throughout the period of the attacks, Chinese state-run media had been attacking Google for Chinese users' ability to find pornography on the search engine, and for alleged plagiarism of Chinese authors' work. On January 12, 2010, Google revealed that it had been a victim of the cyber attack. And the same day, Hillary Clinton, the U.S. Secretary of State, condemned the attack and called for a Chinese investigation into how it occurred and who was behind it. Google publicly declared that in response to the attacks, it would cease censoring Google.cn and would leave China entirely if it were not able to operate legally without any censorship. Who exactly was responsible for the attacks? According to diplomatic cables from the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, which were later made public via WikiLeaks in an incident known as Cablegate, a Chinese source had disclosed that the Google attacks were personally directed by a senior member of the Chinese Politburo, and that its actors were state employees. The same report suggested that the attacks were linked to Chinese government attempts to hack into American government computers, which had been ongoing since 2002. Another report released by a security analyst claimed that the attacks originated from the grounds of two Chinese universities, Shanghai Jiaotong University and Lanxiang Vocational School, both of which had connections with Google's biggest Chinese competitor, Baidu. Both schools denied the allegations. In response to Google's allegations, one Chinese state-run media ran an editorial claiming that Google was acting like a spoiled child by complaining about the attack, and predicted that it wouldn't dare leave China. Another state-run media organization accused Google's response as being the result of a hostile American government strategy. After Google publicly accused China of the cyber attack, residents in Beijing began to leave flowers at its office in Beijing in January 2010. But these were soon removed by Chinese security personnel, who accused those leaving the flowers of engaging in an illegal flower tribute. Pro-Google sentiments from Chinese citizens were scrubbed off the internet that month, but before their deletion, some of the more interesting comments were reported by The New Yorker. One of these read, "This is not Google withdrawing from China, but China withdrawing from the rest of the world." Following Google's public acknowledgement of being spied on, it closed its offices in Beijing, ceased censoring its search results, and by June 2010 began redirecting all searches to Google.hk, its Hong Kong-based search engine. Though Google.hk was soon censored in mainland China as well. China allowed some Google apps to continue functioning in the mainland, such as Gmail and Google Earth, but in 2014 prevented these apps from being accessed by Chinese users as well. Due to the efforts of Chinese censorship, by 2013, Google's market share had declined from its one-time peak of 1/3 to 1.7%. Since it became fully censored in 2014, there have been sporadic attempts by Google to court the Chinese government into allowing it back into China, such as by founding an AI research center in Beijing in 2017. Also in 2017, Google developed a prototype search engine that would comply with Chinese censorship guidelines, Project Dragonfly, but the project was shelved after it became widely known due to concerns within the company and by the American government. Will Google ever return to China? As of 2022, that seems unlikely. Since Google's exit from the Chinese market, there have been many Chinese tech companies that have produced digital products that are the equivalent of, if not superior to, Western applications. So it isn't clear that either the Chinese government or its consumer market need what Google has. Would Google re-enter China if it could, given its history of conflict with the Chinese government? In 2015, Google replaced and discarded its founding motto, "Don't be evil," so it's possible.